Now, one thing I've been hearing from a lot of sources that the ending of Metroid Prime 4 was very underwhelming and it wasn't really what they expected. So I was going into the ending of this game with pretty low expectations, believe it or not. And I can happily say I came out really changed. I think it actually increased how I felt about this game. I really enjoyed the ending. But I really just want to go over exactly what happened and just talk about why I enjoyed it so much. It wasn't perfect, but I still think it was really good for what it was. But before we dive into that, yesterday we had a goal to reach 50 subscribers on yesterday's video, and we did it. We hit about 53 subscribers. Let's see if we can get over 60 on today's video. It's helping us reach our goal of 400,000 and just our current goal of 380. So you can make that happen by leaving a like and subscribing. All you got to do is click the button below. Click it. Alright, let's jump into the ending. Now, if you've ever played a Metroid Prime game, you might know or be familiar with the ending side quest, which normally has you backtracking to past locations and search for a certain number of keys, artifacts, or even some type of power cell in order to progress to the ending. Now, I will say Metroid Prime 4's backtracking is probably my favorite in the entire series, because its in-game collectibles are actually not bad at all. A lot of them, if not most of them, are tied to the open world desert, which you probably already passed during your initial playthrough, and it's already marked on your map. So you just had to go back to these locations, put down your little teleporter device, and it would teleport it back to base. Now, what you're collecting this time around is mech parts in order to construct a giant Galactic Federation robot which warped to this planet of Viros in many different pieces. What I actually like about this is some of the parts are not in the desert, they're tied to certain locations, but they're absolutely not hard to find. They're not in some weird obscure area of the map or in some dark world or maybe hidden through a special visor that you're supposed to use in the corner of some random room. No, they're actually tied to some extra little quest that you get to do and find, and they're easy to find because it'll show you on the map an area you haven't been. For instance, some of them lead to little mini bosses that you haven't even fought in the main game. And like I said, some of these were my favorite parts of the game, believe it or not, like chasing down this little squid in the lava area on your hover bike, or fighting a giant sand creature in the open world desert on your motorcycle. These moments actually made the game feel more like Metroid Prime than ever before. Even backtracking for past, item upgrades and stuff that I've been missing was a lot of fun this time around. Metroid Prime 4 greatly lacked emphasis on puzzles and also any emphasis on exploration for the most part, since most of the level design is just complete straight corridors. So going back and exploring some of these classic puzzle Metroid Prime style locations was really fun. So honestly, I think my best part of the game was going back and collecting all the missables that I was missing. Now, another complaint you might have heard from a lot of reviewers was the green crystals, and a lot of you might be wondering, did I also suffer the fate of having to grind for green crystals at the very end of the game? Absolutely not. In fact, I collected well more than the amount of crystals that I needed to before even getting to the fourth world in the game. I also was able to completely fill the meter a second time, which gives you another reward if you turn them in. And I was able to do that without even really needing to grind, because they also give you a radar to find like a couple that I was missing at the very end. But I think it might be because I have extreme OCD. No kidding, like I have to fully complete everything that I do. So seeing the green crystals turn white after you crushed them was just like a thing in my brain that I had to absolutely do. Plus, any type of game that has an open world, I always like to fill out the map completely. So I don't know how people didn't also have that feeling of, hey, let me try to fill out my map and collect everything while I'm out here. So yeah, the green crystals was absolutely no issue, and for some reason, I actually liked the desert a lot. I can completely understand why people didn't like it, especially if it comes to post-game and they didn't feel like collecting those crystals. But somebody like me, I was actually just cruising, having a good old time, playing music because I scanned my amiibo. Yep, that's right, you have to do it. By the way, it is confirmed. I know a lot of people were spreading false information online. You do unlock extra tracks for 100%ing the game and getting 100% scans, but you do not get the music player until you scan your amiibo. So if you didn't scan your amiibo before beating the end of the game, you will not get anything as a reward. Also, I want to point out that scanning the amiibo initially only gives you like 3 songs, and it's all from like the first world, or technically the second world, being Vault Forge. It gives you the Vault Forge theme, the boss theme for that area, and the viola theme. But personally, I love the Vault Forge theme, so that's the only one I needed. Also, there's special artwork, and I think one video that you can get only if you complete the game in hard mode, and also there's some that you need to collect every green crystal in order to unlock those artworks. So I would recommend doing it if you want to see everything this game has to offer and all the reward completions. But as I was going back and collecting all my items, which was made easier thanks to little drone scout robots in each area that shows you what you're missing and where they're located, the only thing I needed to do was complete all of my scans. Now let this be a warning if you haven't started the game yet. Make sure that you scan every part of a boss battle, because there's some bosses like the first one, Carvex, which has you scanning multiple parts of its body that goes in your data logs as multiple different entries, such as scanning the vine and also scanning the little seedlings that it shoots at you. Now I'm not sure if there's a way to get these later on, because this seems to be one of the few only missables in the game, this and maybe another boss battle in the game. I'm not 100% sure with that, but just make sure you scan everything. If you haven't played the game yet and you're about to, scan every part of every boss. If it looks like a new appendage sticking out, you can probably scan it. Now I got 100% items, but 99% scans, and I knew there were going to be a couple scans left for the final boss, but there was still one that I was missing, some creature, and I had to look online everywhere. Lots of the guides that I've seen were also missing this one. Like, how are you a professional guide posting the logbooks but still not filling out your entire logbook? I don't know, listen, but I couldn't figure out where this thing was. I had to take to Twitter and ask you guys, and you guys pointed me in the direction of a random bird that flies over the entrance of Vault Forge. So finally I found them. I mean, I don't know how in the world someone was going to look up and see that. I mean, I guess it's not too high, but I never would have guessed to look up there. But on to the final boss in the final section of the game. You team up with all the squad members that you found throughout your journey and your giant robot mech that you helped build back together, and it blasts a giant laser at the force field surrounding around Soul Valley's tower. Look, I know some people might have their own opinions and problems with the side characters, but I love this stuff. Seeing Samus and her own little team kind of work together for a common goal was really cool to see as they're all trying to get off of this rock, and I really love this. The voice acting is actually really good. Not every character lands for me. Like, for instance, I think Wakabi was his name, the sniper. He had some weird deliveries that just kind of felt like forced, but Duke and everyone's favorite character Miles were actually probably some of my favorites. Like, Miles has some really good line deliveries.
Prepared, we'll be able to destroy the force field around Chrono Tower.
Yeah, we're gonna want to be careful with that. Just saying I had to get a little creative with those repairs. Yeah, I can only guarantee about 80% functionality.
Oh, just 80%. That's good, Gearhead.
We trust you.
It's such like good delivery, and I'd still want Samus to speak to them too. Like, she's just part of this group, and like, yeah, I'm mute. But anyway, the mech blows apart and the force field is down, and they can now enter the tower in order to reach the master teleporter and get home, because now we have all 5 keys, which was all 5 worlds and dungeons that we had to complete. Now, a lot of people were saying that this was a boring ending, and it ended in a anticlimactic way. We were just walking through hallways and going up elevators, but I say to that, not every ending has to be this giant Avengers Endgame level event, or something on the scale of Donkey Kong Bonanza's ending. Like, those are once in a lifetime style of endings, and not every game needs this giant crazy callback to a past character returning or some crazy lore flip on its head. Sometimes it's just its emotional investment with its characters and just the beauty behind coming to the adventure's end. Samus receives one last message from the last Lamorne, and they all ride this elevator to the very top. There's something really special about this. You know, I can't really explain it. It's just beautiful, and just rising to the top in order to go back home after collecting all of these members of the Galactic Federation during your adventure was just special, and I actually enjoyed this part. I mean, it kind of came together with the beginning of the game, where you first started the game in the top of this tower, and going back one more time in order to head home, seeing the bright light in the sky. It was awesome. However, I did notice something on the left side of the screen. Oh, what are those? I have a feeling that it's foreshadowing something awful. But we get to the top of the tower, and it's absolutely stunning. Everybody's just waiting on Samus to find a way into the master teleporter room, but dude, look at the sky. It's all got this dark, creepy, cloudy essence, and I just love the way it feels at the top of the tower. Like, I'm a big fan of thunderstorms, and I know that sounds weird, but I just love the way the air feels. It's windy, but it's not cold. It's cloudy, but it's not too dark, and I just love that look. And this is such a beautiful scene of riding the morph ball track all the way up into the teleporter. At the top of the tower, you'll come into a room that has psychic healing pods, and it states that they administer intensive care and amplifies psychic abilities. Patients are also linked with Chrono Tower and given access to the tower's functions. Now, if you pay attention to this room, only one of them is in use, because the others, the doors are open, and it's something that I didn't really pick up on at first. Samus then activates the room, and the teleporter then comes down and places itself in position. And let me just say, I just love the colors and the art style of this game. The purples and the pinks, the whites all imbuing within each other. It just looks phenomenal. The art direction is top notch. This is still the most beautiful Nintendo game I've ever seen. Oh, it's awesome. But do you remember that one pod that I told you that seemed to be closed? Well, that's because someone is in it, and that someone ends up being Psyux. Before Samus can activate the teleporter, her mind crystal starts going haywire and giving her flashbacks of a very specific scene over and over again. It's some scene of her picking up a Galactic Federation troop, but him knocking her hand out of the way, not wanting it. This then leads to the entrance of Psyux, because he's been in pretty much this healing tank the entire game, while also controlling the tower, controlling all the bots, and pretty much sending all the robots after Samus. And by healing in this pod, and I can only imagine thanks to also all the green energy that's imbuing inside of him, he's able to become extremely powerful. So upon landing on this world, he probably got hurt in a very bad way and needed to heal himself in one of those pods. And I think this is a really awesome entrance. I mean, I love his theme song, and also his voice actor. It sounds perfect.
Samus! I've been waiting for this.
With such an awesome entrance, unfortunately, it was accompanied by one of the most awkward boss battles ever. Yep, remember when I saw all those partner names on the left side of the screen? Yeah, that's because they're all fighting with you. It's the first phase of the boss fight where all of your friends are fighting alongside you, and it's just not good. For one, you have to quote-unquote shoot the tips of his tendrils, which is already weird enough, but it's just not fun. You only lock on to the center orb that he's in, and you can't even lock on to the individual tentacles. So yeah, aiming and shooting sometimes can be just very difficult, especially as he's moving around. And I didn't feel like there was much strategy to it at all. Maybe you had to use the counter element depending on which one he used, but I didn't really notice a difference depending on whatever I decided to use. And this was just a limited phase before he would go back to his green one, and you just shoot the tentacles and rip them off. But look, I love the Galactic Federation soldiers, and I don't have the problem that many other people do with them. But this... no. Having to revive multiple teammates in the middle of the final boss battle of the game is such an unbelievably terrible idea. I cannot believe that actually made it into the final version. There were so many situations where I would literally get sucked into the middle from some attack from Psyux, and I couldn't even revive them. And I feel like if they don't get revived, then it's just game over. I can't confirm this, but based on the regular game, if this happens and they die out, it's over. The mission's screwed, and you pretty much got to restart from the last save. So I did not want to bother leaving them on the ground, even though I wanted them to just die at points. But thankfully, the dreaded Phase 1 comes to an end, and I was so glad that that was simply just one phase. But Psyux spazzes out and dashes straight through us and takes us through a wormhole. It looks like he holds some limited power of the teleportation device, because he's able to just straight up create wormholes to leave, which is going to lead me into speculation at the very end. But yeah, he just pretty much warps Samus to some space wormhole thing, and you actually fight him on this rail shooter where you can barely move up, down, left, and right, but you have to blast him as you're doing this. This was actually pretty cool, and I love the cinematic nature of just blasting through space and fighting the antagonist at the same time. It was pretty cool looking. It wasn't anything super difficult, but then it would lead us to the final phase, where we literally fight on this platform in the middle of space. It looks like a Xenoblade final boss arena. Well, I've only played the first Xenoblade, but you completely completely understand what I'm talking about if you played it. But yeah, this was awesome. It was an epic backdrop. Once again, awesome voice acting from Psyux and just a really intense battle. I'm not entirely sure if it's as good as his other boss battles, but it's still really well made. I mean, lots of quick actions that you have to hit by going into Morph Ball or double jumping over lasers, including he gets his Lockjaw form. If you don't know what this is, it's actually only showed off in Metroid Prime Hunters, which is his version of the Morph Ball, and I was so happy to see this because the other times you fight him, or his clone rather, he doesn't have this ability. So I was like, yeah, that's awesome. I'm so glad they brought it back. But it turns it into like a little mini game where he can steal your energy tanks and you have to steal it back. It's silly, it's nonsensical, but it's fun, dude. But let me say that this is some of the best 1v1 fights we've had in the entire series. I'm personally not a big fan of the fights with Dark Samus. It just feels like moving around and shooting, where this one actually has you actively dodging attacks with certain abilities of your own, and I really enjoyed it, especially abilities where you actually had to use your slow-mo beam. I thought that was pretty cool. But Psyux is defeated and falls off the platform, and Samus is trying her hardest to grab him before he falls, and it's kind of a sad situation. It shows that Samus still cares about him, and, you know, she's trying her best to, you know, help everybody in this situation. But she ends up defeating Psyux, comes back through the wormhole, tries to activate the teleporter, and guess who's back? Psyux obviously can return because he has the ability to open wormholes, and clearly if he's not dead, he could have just opened a wormhole and popped right back, which is exactly what he did, which leads me to believe this ability is going to allow him to return again. This final scene I know is not going to sit right with everybody. I completely understand, but personally I loved it, dude. Seeing all the Marines start fighting Psyux and protecting Samus while she activates the portal, because if it takes any more damage it looks like it's going to explode, and this is the last opportunity for anyone to take the teleporter. They need enough time for Samus to activate it, and the only way to do that is to have them fight Psyux off, and it's going to take all of them to do so, because Psyux is extremely strong. I mean, he's mowing through each of the members. I absolutely love this scene, and it gives weight to the characters and to the game in general. Like, I haven't felt this way with any of the Metroid Prime endings or the stories. Like, this one felt sad. It felt heart-wrenching as Samus watches. She wants to help, but she can't because she knows if she does, they'll all be stranded there and possibly all die. So it's either save herself or all of them die. And Samus has way too much responsibility to be held back on this planet for the rest of her life. I mean, the rest of the galaxy is going to desperately need her. Takabe throws his badge at Samus, which is like a representation of his god and where he's come from, in order for her to hold for him. And all of them open their masks, show their face for one last time to say goodbye to Samus, and it is actually kind of heart-wrenching because they all know that they're either going to die or be stranded on this planet for the rest of their lives. The screen then flashes white and fades to black. This was beautiful, I'm not gonna lie. I know a lot of people still may not be satisfied with that and it might have ended too abrupt for them, but I love the way it ended, and it gave me hope that this was kind of a part one to maybe a new trilogy that Nintendo was trying to start up with Retro Studios. But it's not over because there is an ending, including a secret ending for 100% and a special scene with Psyux that I just adored. This scene shows Samus arriving back to the planet where they were having the battle with the space pirates at the very beginning, and there on that planet, she plants the Lemorn seed full of their memories and history, and she also places the pendant from Takabe on the tree as well as remembrance for the soldiers that lost their lives back on Viros. Of course, like every Metroid Prime game, Samus removes her helmet and she looks phenomenal. This is probably my favorite look for her yet. It just feels like exactly what I've imagined her looking like. I know the other Prime games had some iffy looks, but this one I think fits her the best, man. But this scene, I mean, just the pre-rendered cutscene looks so amazing. Like, man, they did a great job. This is Sakurai levels of animated cutscene goodness, man. And I just loved everything about this. It was sad, it was somber. It just makes you want to know what happened back on Viros. Did everyone die? Is Psyux still alive? I feel like he is. I don't know about the other troopers, but I feel like with him using his galactic teleportation thing that he has now, he probably escaped. But upon 100% completion and scans, you get an extra scene. It's a really good pre-rendered cutscene of a battle between the Galactic Federation and the Space Pirates. We've never really seen an all-out war like this before, so it was a really pleasant surprise, but Yeah, this is Psyux. This is how he started off, and finally getting a story for the character was awesome. How he was this Marine leader and a high-ranking official for the Federation, but he had an ego to him. He didn't want Samus to swoop in with her team and take all the glory. Instead, he wanted him and his team to do it, where he wanted to take out the space pirate weapon and capture it himself, so he ignored the directive and pushed his team forward. This would lead the space pirate device to be activated and wipe out his entire crew, except for him, as he took refuge in a nearby crater. I love this scene. This is just the biggest nightmare for him ever. Not only does Samus come to the rescue and save the day, taking out the space pirate weapon, but also he loses his entire team in the process, and he's failed. And to add even more salt on the wound, Samus tries to pick him up, but he's not accepting of her offer. All he can do is look at the blood on his own hands, the blood of his team that he so selfishly brought into destruction. I love this, and I think this is one of the best directions they could go with his character arc, being a Galactic Federation soldier in the past, a high-ranking one that turned on the Federation, stole their equipment, and would grow disdain for Samus and the Federation ever since. I am seriously praying that we see more of Psyux, and I love the idea of having more main antagonists for Samus outside of like Ridley, and obviously Dark Samus being gone. I would love to see Psyux be the main antagonist for a new trilogy of games. So I'm betting that Psyux didn't die, because this just feels like it's setting up for more. So hopefully we see more within a handful of years, and maybe Prime 4 does extremely well, which can boost start development for Prime 5. But as the game wasn't perfect, I mean, I had a lot of issues with it, I still think it ended on an extremely high note. Let me know what you thought of the ending of Metroid Prime 4. Did it live up to your expectations? Did you like what they did with Psyux? And are you thinking that they're going to bring him back? Is there going to be another game? Let me know your theories and thoughts down below, and thank you so much for tuning in. There's a lot of Metroid Prime 4 videos I have in the works, so you're definitely going to keep it here if you're a big Metroid fan. Thank you for tuning in, and I hope you all have a blessed day. See you guys.